Well, where am I today? I've just got off the train at just south of Birmingham actually. The sun's just come up. It's looking pretty chilly, and let me tell you, it's quite fresh. But anyway, I've got a bit of walking to do. As soon as I get there, I'll let you know where I am. See you in a bit. Okay, so where am I today? I am at Norton Junction on the Worcester to Birmingham Canal. It's the junction where it meets up with the Stratford upon Avon Canal, the north end of Stratford upon Avon Canal, and it's just south of Birmingham. It's very early in the morning, it's a bit fresh, there's loads of mist on the water, and I'm going that way. Yeah, I'm all pumped up. Let's get in the water. So Norton Junction, that's the toll house, by the way. They would have had to pay tolls coming from the Stratford upon Avon Canal over there onto the Worcester and Birmingham Canal here. All the different companies that ran all the different canals, they used to charge each other's carrying companies to travel on each canal. But that's a beautiful building. Looks like it's all been done up actually, which is lovely. So that says Worcester, 24.5 miles that way. Birmingham, 5 miles that way, 5.5. And 20.5 miles to Warwick behind me. And Stratford, 25.5 behind me. That's a really great sign actually. Right, anyway, I'm heading to Birmingham, set right to the centre of Birmingham today, which is this way. So in 1791, an Act of Parliament was applied for and granted to build a canal from the centre of Birmingham all the way down to Worcester and the River Severn. Now that was granted and work started in 1794. At the same time, round about the same time, an Act of Parliament was granted for the Stratford Canal to go and join the Worcester and Birmingham Canal at the junction I've just left. So they pretty much kicked off about the same time. So work started to build the Worcester and Birmingham Canal from a place called Gas Street Basin in the centre of Birmingham. If you're familiar with Birmingham, that's just outside of Birmingham New Street Station. That was already a termination point for the Birmingham Canal Navigation Company. So they weren't particularly pleased about that because they already felt that they had things sewn up in the centre of Birmingham with their own company. Nevertheless, the Worcester to Birmingham Canal started to be built. One of the things about canals is they're very precious about their water. Water's a real problem, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But round here where I've just started off, there's a huge reservoir just over there. And the reason that was put in was because originally this canal was being fed from brooks and streams and rivers in the local area. This was a very rural area at the time, and there were mills around here, milling corn to make flour, that kind of thing. And all of a sudden, when the canal was opened, all of their water disappeared because it went to the canal, and consequently eventually they were forced to build Lifford Reservoir as compensation for the mill owners. So they had some water to deal with, and Lifford would also supply the canal. Good morning. So building a canal from Worcester all the way to Birmingham is quite a major feat really. It's quite hilly for a start, and the main thing is that Birmingham is quite high up in the hills compared to Worcester. In fact, it's 428 feet higher in Birmingham than it is in Worcester. Consequently, they had to put in 58 locks, mostly down south. 30 of those are at a place called Tardybig, and Tardybig has got 30 locks in a flight, which is one of the longest flights of locks in Europe. So it's quite a big deal to have a canal basically keeping it still full of water without it all running downhill. I'm just coming under Camp Hill railway now, railway line. This used to be the Birmingham to Gloucester line. That's what it used to be called, run by the company Birmingham to Gloucester. Bridge 74. I'm just coming under Pershaw Road now. This is a north-south road, and in Roman times it was called Icknield Street. It was a very important street actually in Roman times, going north-south from the Midlands all the way down to the River Avon. As I was saying, in the 1790s, this was very much a greenfield rural area. The odd house here and there, but really it wasn't the outskirts of anything. Now, following along the side of me here is the Birmingham Western Suburban Railway. The canal's built up high, and the Birmingham Western Suburban Railway Company had to rent space initially on the bank to put their railway, because it saved them building their own bank. And basically, canals are pretty flat places, and railways need flat places, which is why quite often you find them both sitting next to each other. Incidentally, you'll notice that this railway station is purple, which seems like an unusual colour for a railway station, but there's a great reason for that, and that's because it's Bournville. Now, anybody that knows Bournville, and anybody that's heard of the word Bournville, will know that it's associated with Cadbury's chocolate. And Cadbury's chocolate is pretty much the main people that use Bournville station, because Bournville Cadbury's is right next to it. So in 1861, John Cadbury finally gave up control of the Cadbury's factory that he had and gave it over to his sons, and they decided that they needed to expand. Now, they were a Quaker family and looking to do good as well as do chocolate, so they looked for a greenfield site, and they found the greenfield site on a small river called Bourne Brook, and they were looking for good transport links to bring their things in. So they built their factory, and not just that, they built a whole village for the workers, which they called Bournville, named after the brook. Good morning. And ideally, like I say, they needed good transport links, so they built it right next to the canal on the greenfield site. so they could expand wonderfully, and they have done all over there. But also they had the railway right next to them by then, by 1861. So that meant that they could bring milk locally on the canal for the chocolate, and they could bring cocoa from Liverpool docks all the way down here nice and quickly on the train. So it's perfect for them, really. They also had their own railway running inside the factory, actually, running inside their company. So they could come straight off on a siding. And I've just passed the loading dock, the wharf, for the milk to be unloaded and taken in. But it's a huge place. It's got Cadbury World there now as well. It's sort of a Cadbury's experience for the family. I did go there years and years and years ago. It's really very good, very interesting. Someone looks very keen on railways over there. Waterside, I like that, it's nice. This is lovely because the area is just waking up. I say it on every video, but I really enjoy the early morning paddles, and it's lovely. And much as it's autumn now, very much into autumn, you can tell by the colour of the trees. It really is. It's going to be a beautiful day by the look of it. I've got the sun coming up behind me really nicely, actually. It's going to be quite sunny. That'll be smashing. Good morning. It's amazing, the towpath's really well used. Seems to be a lot of people going to work, a lot of people running. That's a good thing, I think. It's definitely an underused resource, so yeah, it's great. This is an interesting bridge. You do quite often see it on canal bridges. These two openings at the top, they're actually just in case the fire brigade ever needs to put a hose pipe through. They haven't got to take it over the top of the wall. They can just drop it straight down into the canal. You see it a lot in cities and towns. Now the Worcester and Birmingham Canal was built as a narrow canal, and you can tell that from here, can't you? Debris in the water. Ooh, we're through. That was an old wharf at one time. I'm starting to get into the more industrial side now. This part of Birmingham got industrialised quite early on, really. So it's certainly served by the canal being here, taking things in and taking things away. And that great big building in front of me is the University of Birmingham. So I think that means I'm about halfway, actually. That's a big building. Birmingham University is mostly over this side, I think. That's quite lovely. Selly Oak Railway Bridge. Selly Oak's an interesting place. Selly Oak, the Selly part of it comes from, it's a really ancient English word. It basically means a terrace that's been filled in with soil. So I'm guessing at one time in the dim distant past there was some sort of terrace filled in with soil with an oak there We quite often in this country, we quite often celebrate large oaks in different places. When you think of place names, there's quite a lot that have got oak in them. So yeah, this is all a railway anyway. Oh right, okay, I know exactly where I am now. This is Sainsbury's, marvellous. So right here there used to be Selly Oak Junction. Now Selly Oak Junction went across, right there, went that way through on the Dudley No. 2 Canal. And the Dudley No. 2 Canal was really quite something actually. So there was the Dudley No. 1 and the Dudley No. 2 canals went over to the west of Birmingham, and Dudley No. 2 disused now. And the reason it's disused is because it had a tunnel not far on the other side of Sainsbury's here. It started off, it's called Lapo Tunnel, and it was 9 feet wide roundabout, 6 feet high, and 2 miles long. Now there was no towpath, so the horse had to go over the top, and 2 people, 2 men probably, would leg that boat through, and it would take them 3 hours pushing their feet against the wall to take the boat through Lapo Tunnel. That must have been an absolute nightmare. Now I've paddled through a lot of tunnels, and I can tell you that after a quarter of a mile into a tunnel, the end of the tunnel was just a pinprick of light in the distance. So if you can imagine being in the middle of a 2-mile tunnel with a paraffin lamp to find your way, it must have been pretty dank and pretty cold. Even in the middle of the summer, they're freezing things to be inside of. So in the dark, legging through a 70-ton coal barge, 6-foot high tunnel, 9 feet wide in a 7-foot wide boat, must have been pretty difficult stuff, I would think. There were also a lot of collapses inside the tunnel, and in 1917 the final collapse really saw the end of it, and they closed it down and dug up, well, filled in most of it. Quite a lot of the Dudley No. 2 is just boggy stuff now, really. There is a bit of it that's still used as a marina at the other end, quite good moorings, I understand, but yeah, that's all gone now. Just going over an aqueduct. Let's have a look down. Quite a high aqueduct, in fact. It's getting quite weedy through here, duckweed. I think the reason for that is probably because this is a dead end, this tunnel, this canal. It finishes obviously at Gas Street Basin, where everything gets really quite congested. It really was an actual dead end at one time. You can go through now where the old stop block used to be, but yeah, where everything gets quite congested, I would think the bloom of weed has really got nowhere to go. So I paddle hundreds of miles a year, and recently I've been documenting, if you've been watching my other videos, you'll know I've been documenting urban canals. Well, where I live, I'd sort of run out of urban canals, really. Interesting ones anyway. There's quite a lot of canals. I mean, there's hundreds of miles of canals, but a lot of them are in the countryside and all very similar. And I quite like the ones that go through interesting places. So because of that, I've had a bit of an experiment today where I packed everything up, put it on the train, and carrying all my gear by public transport to get to somewhere. And it's been really interesting, actually, getting everything in sort of one bag really, and just one of my dry sacks to carry with everything in it has been an interesting experience. But actually it's been really good. It's been really successful. And I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it. Now that is a really substantial bridge. There's a lot of bricks in that. You'd think they'd have either made the arch higher or the road lower. I like that. I was looking on the old maps, and where I am right now there used to be an old Roman fort, sort of a square thing with earthworks right the way around the outside that you can still see on the old maps actually. And I was talking about Icknield Street, used to come across that bridge further back and all the way up right through the middle of that fort. You often find that with Roman forts where they are literally laid out in a north-south square and the main road goes right through the middle of it. I think I just heard a jay over there. '84A, and the A tells me that this bridge wasn't originally there when the canal was built. Any bridges after the original ones are called A, B, C, otherwise you'd have to renumber every bridge every time you put a new bridge up. Now these are the tunnels at Edgbaston Tunnel. One for the railway, one for the canal. Edgbaston, obviously just over that way, is the cricket ground. So that says I'm allowed to go through it as an unpowered craft. It's not very big. Morning. 97 metres. And it's got lights. That's nice, isn't it? Now I'm really getting into the centre of Birmingham now. I'll tell you what, I know everything looks better from the water, but actually it's a really nice area. It is. It seems lovely. I guess it's the student area, so you know that student areas tend to be quite nice with sort of nightlife and parks and things like that around universities. I mean, I've come way past that now. I'm sort of still in Edgbaston, I think, and it seems really nice. It does. Something that always amazes me on urban canals is how little litter I see. I've seen I mean there's a can over there, and I've passed a couple of cans and a couple of bottles, but in 5 miles, you know, you'd see a lot more on the street. I think most of it is sort of generated from fast food, and I guess not much of that ends up in the canal. But I think that's really good. Now that's interesting. See all the lines there? They were all cut by the ropes pulled by the horses about 100 years ago. So we've got all the old loading wharves here. So I'm just coming up to Gas Street Basin now. Going to be turning left in a moment. But that's wonderful, isn't it? Repurposed, I love that. That's good. Looks like a hub of nightlife. That's the BBC over there, BBC Birmingham. Wonderful. So as I said right at the beginning, in 1794 they'd already built this part, started building from here going down towards Worcester, and this part here, the BCN, the Birmingham Canal Navigations Company, were really unhappy about it. They were worried that their water was going to be lost, going to be stolen effectively. It costs an awful lot. The biggest expense of the canal companies really was maintaining the water. They had to build all sorts of reservoirs, boreholes, steam pumps, all sorts of things to maintain the water level in their canals. And the idea of somebody building a canal right that joined with theirs and took their water was really quite abhorrent from a shareholder point of view, if nothing else. So Gas Street Basin was the end of the line for the Birmingham Worcester Canal, the Worcester Birmingham Canal. And actually the BCN built a huge wall right the way across the middle of it called Gas Street Bar. Now Gas Street Bar remained there for 20 years, and for 20 years anything that needed to go from the Worcester to Birmingham onto the Birmingham Canal Navigations waters had to be carried over the top of that wall. Finally, through negotiations, the Worcester Birmingham Canal raised their water level by 6 inches, and they put in a stop lock right there in front of me. The stop lock's no longer used, it's no longer required, but that was to stop any water leakage going from one canal to the other if it happened to be running through. This is quite a historic place. I like that old wharf, canal house, Regency Wharf over there. Seems to be some historic boats here as well. That's lovely. A lovely place. This was the old stop lock. Worcester Birmingham that way, BCN that way. Well, how much fun was that? That was just brilliant. What a great paddle. 5.5 miles, all the way from Norton Junction, where it joins with the Stratford-upon-Avon Canal, all the way along the Worcester Birmingham Canal, all the way to Gas Street. Loads of history there. This is a really historic place as well, on the canal network. Just an amazing place. Now all I've got to do is get all that stuff back in my bag, get myself changed, and walk about half a mile that way. Brilliant. Anyway, like, subscribe, stay tuned. Happy paddling.